If you liked this episode of the Hockey IQ podcast, please leave a like, a comment, and especially review our podcast. If you truly listened all the way to the end and you're listening to this right now, you enjoyed this episode. Please go and give it a 5-star review. That helps us out more than you know. Thank you so much and look forward to the next one.
On the Hockey IQ podcast day, we bring on Barry Jones out of the beautiful Perth, Australia. Barry, great to have you. Early morning for me, very late night for you. I'm so glad we've got technology.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 9:27 in Perth night time. So yeah, it's been a long day already.
Meanwhile, I'm over here just getting it started. But no, it's really cool about the technology because living in Western Australia, I don't know if people realize how remote you really are. What's the next closest like competitive organization? What does that look like if you want to get somewhere in the world? How long does it normally take to travel?
Yeah, that's good. So Adelaide is probably the closest, and they're about 2,500 kilometers away. So that's a really fast plane for about 3.5 hours. So we get over there a few times a year for competition, and they throw sort of an under 11s jamboree as well. That's sort of the hub for Australia for the jamboree. And then the next space is 3.5 and 4,000 kilometers away. So they're generally you can do it in a weekend, but it's a fairly tough junket.
Yeah, so obviously you're not going across all these NHLers like you might in areas of the US or Canada where you just kind of have access to a lot of great hockey minds. I'm curious, what has this journey been for you kind of out there, quite remote compared to the rest of the hockey world?
Yeah. Look, I sort of think it's a double-edged sword in respect to um, it's very difficult to find mentors in a space that sort of aren't quite traditional. We've been around 20 years. We've been doing this for 20 years. This is what we do. Um, I do I've sort of linked myself with the coaches site, and they've been sort of a really good mentor to me, where I get to speak to and sort of see lots of content from different coaches, including someone like yourself, and get to see how that's evolving in that space. And then I get the opportunity here to experiment with the teams that we have here and try those things to see what works and see how either different we are from a social perspective, or how similar we are from a sports perspective. So that double-edged sword gives me the ability to be able to, no mentorships. I've got to sort of reach outside of the circle, but have the ability to be able to try those things. So that's sort of that double-edged sword for me.
Yeah, maybe help us get a better lie of the land. Like how many rinks does Perth have? How many players are we looking at?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, depending on the day, we could have about 3 rinks running. Right now, we're down to 2 rinks. So we have one north, one south. I generally have around 500 to 600 people sort of playing at I guess, a competition level. And then there are house leagues and sort of beer leagues that run sort of, in line with that. So there could possibly be anywhere between sort of 12 to 1,400 people playing ice hockey in Western Australia.
And lest some people forget, you guys are kind of in the summertime right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think it was 34 today, but yesterday was 39, and that's Celsius for the Americans tuning in. So that's pretty warm for us.
Yeah,
I think
you're
we've
only at
had
a
40.
hundred degrees Fahrenheit for those that need the translation.
There you go. Thank you very much. Yeah. So and that has its technical issues for a start, to trying to keep a big sheet of ice cold all day, every day, and people using it at when it's 40 degrees. But that's why we have big machinery that does that.
Not a bad place to be on a summer day, especially when it gets that
Agreed.
hot.
Absolutely agreed. Agreed. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so technology's brought us all together, and you've been able to find all of these mentors, and that's why I love books, right? Like you can get someone's thoughts crystallized from themselves, kind of like that primary. And now we've got newsletters, great resources like the coach's site, etc., that you can kind of tune into. What's your journey been as you've been accumulating this knowledge and practice and practical of like actually applying it in your coaching and hockey journey? Like what has this evolution started from and where have you gone to today?
Yeah, look, it's a great question, and I guess my belief is that if I expect my athletes to develop themselves, then I probably should be developing myself as a coach as well. And I guess if I'm the catalyst for their development, I should probably be, at a point where things that I'm doing for them and giving them the information should be correct. So, sort of 4 or 5 years ago, I sort of reached out and started to explore other versions of what coaching looked like. I sort of gotten to a point where the X's and the O's made a lot more sense to me. But the actual, I guess, the delivery of the X's and the O's was something that I wanted to explore more of and understand that better. Um, so, listening to podcasts, reading books, sort of, I guess, identifying a style of coaching that sort of fitted with I guess, my beliefs, my personality, and I sort of got towards a product called nonlinear design or ecological dynamics. Um, we sort of, we sort of been doing this for years, where we sort of create a game and we play a game, and everyone sort of learns inside the game, and I felt that, gamifying something made sense. And that's sort of where I started from. And then understanding the science that backed that, and then understanding where that took you. And then working into a non-linear structure, which means that we develop through game like and through exploration. So instead of telling someone what to do, you actually produce an environment for them to explore and find other ways. So that's sort of something that I've enjoyed developing sort of environments through small area games, and sort of understanding how the game works from a psychological perspective, and then from a time and space perspective.
All right, so if we rolled back 6 years,
Yeah.
or further, what did a practice look like for you? Like, can you just give us an
Yeah.
idea of what that looked like?
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess it was a fistful of flow drills for 45 or 50 minutes, and everyone patting themselves on the back, how fantastic they looked. I guess that's what a training session looked like. But I struggled to find out why things didn't work when we actually got to the game. And that was one of the things that was a real epiphany for me to understand, is we spent all this time developing, this perfect pattern, and then when we get to the game, that perfect pattern is destroyed in the first 30 seconds when somebody does something different. And that was one of the things that sort of made me think to myself that maybe perfect isn't what we're looking for. Maybe we're looking for something that's more efficient. And efficiency is more robust. So, if I'm efficient at something, then I can use it in a multitude of places. If I'm perfect at something, then I'm always trying to find perfection in things, and I forget about what happens in the environment. So then when I started to realize that things didn't have to look perfect, they didn't have to look pretty, all they needed to do was to be efficient to solve the problems. And then I started to identify that we have to solve problems in the game, as opposed to sort of practicing these patterns of understanding. It's now more patterns of recognition that we do. So then when I went from that understanding, I thought to myself, how do I do this? And that's when I started to reach out and explore different versions of that. I think I started through the Canadian program, and I looked at the USA program. And at that time, USA hockey sort of, we went through the COVID time and sort of moved everything online. And it gave me the ability to be able to sort of explore their development process. And, over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, they've been pushing towards more of an ecological approach. Whether they don't actually use those words until you sort of get to your level 4 and your level 5. But that's sort of what they've been pushing to: small area games, gamifying things, understanding what practices should look like. And all these things helped me sort of explore where we were moving to, and sort of how we developed these things as an environment. And then a lot of those things was, making sure that there was lots of puck touches. Well, in a flow drill where with 26 people standing in the corner, they're not getting many puck touches. So how do I have more than one person, sort of making themselves look really good out there while the other 25 clap? Because he was fantastic. So then starting to get more people involved in doing things, and that meant I had to actually have more of a game-like scenario, and then you can have 6 people at once as opposed to one person going in a really ugly horseshoe. And then moving from there, sort of started to look at what training design looked like. What does this look like? What am I exploring? How do I explore? What type of environments am I doing? And that's when I started to look at, instead of having sort of a linear approach of this week we're going to do breakouts, next week we're going to do sort of neutral zone, and then next week we're going to use attacking zone. I started to look at problems to be solved in the game. So, and that's when I started to understand how we develop small area games to build environments to have those problems appear time and time and time again, and then create an environment so that people could actually sample those problems and find different ways of solving those solutions. And I guess that's sort of where I started to think, well, this must have a real name to it. And that's when I sort of researched it and came up with a non-linear approach, which is exactly what I'd stumbled upon from exploring exactly what they tell me to do, is explore the environment and find out what the problems to solve. And I did exactly that. And then I found out it had a name.
I really like the one way you put it was like, it doesn't need to be pretty, not perfect patterns, but rather patterns of understanding, and trying to
Yeah.
give them the problem so they can have a pattern of understanding rather than trying to find the perfect pattern. I'm here in
Yeah.
Columbus, Ohio, and I was watching a mite practice one time, and it was a full ice 5-on-0 breakout and break in.
Mm.
And I was like, this may not be great. Uh, which
No.
which really leads me back to like your point of like, it looks great. You feel great as a coach because you have great control, but then as soon as it gets put into a game, everything breaks down and you're overly predictable. It's easy to defend on the other team because there's not an overarching, and I call this like the commander's intent. Like, you need to understand what the overall objective is so then you can problem solve in the moment and have that filtered down into these micro decisions that you're not making as the coach, but the players are making. And to your point, like
Correct.
putting them into that environment where the relevant information that they're going to have in a game is similar to what they're going to see in practice. So they're more likely to have something that will actually work rather than something that looks perfect and pretty.
Yeah. I have this story I tell to coaches, and it explains it perfectly. And you want to teach your child how to cross the road, so you make sure there are no cars coming, and then you get him to walk across the road half a dozen times. He feels really good about himself because he's crossed the road. And then the next time he goes, all the cars are on the road and they're traveling at 50 k's an hour. So I trained him, taught him, he knows how to cross the road. There's no pressure. He can walk across, he can dance across, he can cartwheel across, he can pretty much do whatever he likes because there's no pressure. Now the cars are on the road and they're traveling at 50 k's an hour. He's going to have to relearn how to cross the road. He's going to have to make sure he's scanning. He's going to have to make sure that he doesn't get hit by other cars. He's going to have to make sure that his timing is correct. He now starts to understand how much space he has, how fast he has to travel. So if we do the same in a 5-on-0, there is no pressure. You can do what you like. You can lose the puck and recover the puck. There's nothing that's stopping you from just looking perfect in that space. But then when we get to the game scenario, everyone is traveling 50 k's an hour. So now all of a sudden I lose the time, I lose my space, my psychological application is gone. Everyone is on top of me. How do I now solve those? And I point it back to that if you're developing a team, you have to develop a team for the game they're going to play, not a game that you can play in training. So if you want your game to be fast, then you have to train fast. If you're going to create pressure, you have to create pressure. If you want both sides of that, you have to do that in trainings. You have to understand that if I'm developing a team to play in a game they have not played before, I have to recreate that game for them to play in. And No amount of 5-on-0s is going to teach that. No amount of pass to him, pass to him, pass to him, shoot. Oh, that was fantastic. Well done. None of that is going to help you in a game scenario. That's just how it is. So we really have to identify what we're trying to do. What problems are we trying to solve, and then recreate those problems so they can solve them, and solve them in safe places. So when they fail, you can have a conversation. There's no pressure. There's too much pressure when you're playing a game. People learning while they're playing a game generally doesn't happen. So you have to recreate those problems so they can solve them when they have time to think about it, and then they can have a conversation afterwards.
You bring up a great point, is like having that psychological safety being a critical element in the learning process. If you're yelling at the kids, probably not good. If you're trying to bring the energy by yelling at the kids, probably not good. That's often lacking in our coaching ability, and what can we do to be better? If you're having to yell, you're probably really,
Yeah.
really, really struggling in your coaching.
Well,
So I
I'm
love.
yelling at I'm yelling at them for a problem that I created. Because if I didn't give them an environment to solve that problem during training, how do I expect them to be able to solve that when everyone is traveling twice as fast, when everybody wants to puck? If I haven't created those environments for them to learn in, that's my fault. So no yelling on the bench at the athletes, no screaming at anyone. No, no, no. It's more just I consider games to be data, and this is it. Sometimes it becomes a confusing space for someone, but the most important part of the game for me is the training, because the training is where you learn to play the game. The game is just a test to see whether you trained properly. It's not the other way around. So if they fail in the answers during the game, then I have to go back to the way that I trained. And it always has to come back to the way you trained. It has to be the coach's responsibility to make sure you've given them enough time and enough space and enough psychological safety to be able to solve those problems in the game that you want them to play.
To your point, like um, my team randomly just started developing a cycle in the offensive zone this year, uh, which I work on picking up rims, but it still hadn't developed yet. Just basic stuff like that. But I had played a game where I have I call it the elevator game, because you need to activate one of these elevators. And I usually start it high. So above the tops of the circles, you have to keep one player.
Yep.
And then you can have two that can go low. Then eventually I evolved that game to, okay, well, now we're going to do it low. So there's got to be someone always below the goal line. And then you can have two others anywhere you want. It's 3-on-3. You always have to have someone there in order to score. And then I started to combine the two. So we had one player stayed high, one below the goal line, and two in the middle. So 4-on-4. And just from that, naturally, a cycle evolved.
Yeah.
And all these coaches are like, oh, that cycle, like, how you been working on that? And I'm like, haven't really worked on it. We've just been playing some situational games where that has become a very effective tool in our offensive toolbox. And it's just emerged
Yeah.
based on the environmental play and what they're seeing. And it's been a fantastic aha moment to a lot of other coaches, along with myself, of like these emergent properties that can happen by putting a problem in front, not having expectations on you need to be doing this, that, and the other, but just simply guiding and letting the game be a teacher, but also having those conversations like, oh, what are some extra solutions? And having the players think and emerge with their own solutions.
Yeah, and you could, yeah, I mean, you've changed the constraints in there. So, you can constrain a solution to have another solution emerge. So switching from low to high would have created a cycle. So because you never set a constraint in there, they probably just switch. And you'll have some players that like to sit in a certain position, others will replace those. So everyone self-organizes. This is the greatest thing about learning, is the fact is that everyone wants to be efficient. With 350,000 years, we've been sort of wandering around trying to use as least amount of energy as we possibly can because we're just not going to know where it's going to come from. So we have this concept of self-organization where I'm just going to simplify everything. And sometimes in that self-organization, it becomes exploratory. We start to explore simpler ways. We start to explore other ways of solving problems. And if we go back to a traditional sense, then the coach becomes the problem solver and tells the athlete what to do. And the reality is when that athlete tries that and it fails, they don't have anything else left in their toolbox. But you creating a small game where they can have solutions and enjoy and pass and then try their little tricks and do these different things that they want to, gives them the ability to be able to self-organize and find new solutions around things. Oh, I didn't realize that was going to work. Oh, I could bounce that off the boards. Oh, I could pass it to soft ice and get into a better location and he can pass back to me. And these are conversations that they're having in the line when it's their next shift and they're starting to talk to each other. And you don't get that when you give them the answers. They already know the answers because you've told them. So they've got nothing to talk about other than what they did yesterday. But when you don't give them the answers, you only give them problems to solve. They start to talk about what those problems look like and how do we solve them as a group. And that's self-organization. And that's what you want. You want your athletes to be able to solve the problems without you. And the only way you can do that is by building those problems into your training and let them explore.
And almost give them a little bit of a level of frustration of like not having enough or like having a desire for more. There's this game called Cards Against Humanity, and I always say like you need to stop one card before you're sick of it. Like you still need to be having fun at the peak where you want to come back and play some more. Like that's how you end it well, and you want to come back. You go one card or one round too many, it like ruins the entire experience that you just had.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm like, it's similar to when we're talking about coaching of like you want them to want a little bit more, where now they're starting to explore. They're talking together, they're organizing. They're like, what does coach want? Like how is this working? And like really activating their mind and not being in a comfortable state. Just find it always to, like the best is just like there's some familiarity of what we're doing, but also there's always someone on the other side. Like you want to create more competition, more speed, more compete. It's not a cone on the ice that's going to give it to them. It's going to be often another human being on the other side trying to stop you and add a few teammates. Now you've got that self-organization and working together and understanding of like, how do I get pucks? Oh, I need to move to open space rather than just waiting for a turnover, which you see at the youth levels. But then as you go up the scale, it's like, oh, everyone can pass. So you need to change how you play the game in the first place. Well, how do we explore that? What does this look like? How do I interact with my teammates? And how that is such a critical element to develop those higher level play, whether it be play style or players, that is absolutely crucial. And this is a great way to accelerate them towards that and develop them into that.
Yeah, it is. It is. Look, I find that coaches struggle when it comes to the nonlinear approach, and that's because um, sometimes they have a belief that they have all the answers, and if they're not talking, then no one is learning anything. So they tend to just keep talking and talking and talking and trying to give more and more reasons for why you do things. And that was one of the first things I found was actually just to stop talking. I talk through my design. I talk through the problems that we've created. It's not free range chickens. You just don't have a big sheet of ice, throw some food out there, and hope that they learn how to play the game. We create proper environments. I have a concept called global constraints, which is the most important thing. And I think this is where coaches struggle with an understanding of global constraints. We have a process of a 1-3-1 system. That's a system that we learn. Instead of calling it a system in a nonlinear approach, what we would call that is a habit. And we want to develop those habits of positioning in that understanding. So it's a global constraint. But that doesn't mean to say that I tell the F1, F2, F3, F4, F5 what they have to do, but I understand what that looks like from a habit base, and then they get to explore inside that. So we can still develop those things. And I think that's where coaches, they struggle because they think you either go from an overly structured traditional approach to free range chickens, and there's nothing in between. And I think that's generally why coaches struggle in this space. So the trick is to understand the problem you're trying to solve, create an environment that produces that problem over and over again so they can sample new solutions, and probably just shut up for a little bit to allow them to explore without yelling out the answers, because they're never going to learn if you don't shut up.
Yeah, I think one, shutting up so you can observe more. Like there's that trade-off. And observation is the critical data that you need. I find the other thing is like just giving little recommendations. What if you did this? Maybe they try it once, maybe it works for them, maybe it doesn't. But just like,
Yeah.
because there's are those players that will naturally explore, and there's the other players that kind of need a little bit of a hint to, well, maybe here's a solution to try out. Here's another idea. Just constantly giving ideas as well could be super beneficial. And then the next piece I'll go with that is like using appropriate language. Like if you're trying to do a 1-3-1
Always.
or some kind of
Yeah.
system, like for the forecheck to your F1, F2, F3, like, okay, well, F1, that's the bull. F2 might be the cheeky fox, and then F3 is going to be that soaring eagle or crow, whatever it
Correct.
is.
But they're habits, right? So you're teaching them habits to play. You're not teaching them a fixed system where, player A stands on this dot. I put a tire here for you to stand. Player B stands on this dot. There's a tire here for you, player C. You're not doing that. What you're asking is you're saying, hey, this is the type of plan that we're working with. This is our global constraint. These are the things that we want to try and achieve. How do you solve each of those roles inside of that? Now, I agree. You don't. There's the concept of feedback. There's multiple layers of feedback before they actually get to you as an athlete to coach scenario. First of all, you get on ice feedback. Did the puck go into the net? I mean, if that's the game. I mean, that's the global problem we're trying to solve. Did it go into the net? And if it didn't, if you're out there for 15, 20, 45 seconds and it didn't go in, then you don't need feedback for me to tell you that it didn't go in. You already know. The net would have told you. The ice would have told you. If it was during a game, the crowd would have told you it didn't go in. Your players on the bench would have told you. The players on the ice would have told you. So with myself, when it comes to communication with the athletes, I don't want to be involved in conversation where they can explore, but I do want to be involved when they come to me, they have to come to me and say, these are the things that I have tried, coach. What else is available, do you think? Because if they're not trying them, it means they don't know them. It's not that they don't care. It's just that they haven't been introduced to that. There's a concept called affordances. Affordances are quite intriguing. If you had two different people and one person's 7.5 feet tall and another person is 3 feet tall, both of them look at the world differently. All their affordances are different. You got a big bookcase behind you. If I was 7.5 foot tall, I could probably reach up and put books in the top. But if I'm 3.5 feet, I'm going to have to problem solve that. So I'm going to have to find a chair or climb on the table. So the affordances for someone that's 7.5 feet tall is different for a person that's 3.5 feet. And that's the same thing on the game. Someone that's really, really fast will see the game in a fast affordance-based world. I can get to there quicker than most. This is going to be the way that I'm going to solve that problem. Someone that's big and strong are going to solve that problem through physicality. Someone who's smart is going to solve that problem through the way that they think about the game. These are all affordances that are happening. Thousands and thousands of affordances in a game happen, all for different people at different times and events. I wrote an article regarding hockey IQ. It's quite a big article, but it talks about understanding the affordances. So coaches have to remember that when you build a problem for people to solve, each person is going to solve that using the affordances that are based around their own identity. So if I'm a really good passer, I'm probably going to be looking for a really good, strong stretch pass, right? And if I'm a good skater, I'm probably going to try and skate the problem out. And if I'm really, really strong, I'm probably going to strengthen the problem out. I'm probably going to, hit someone on the boards. So then you can now start looking at individual constraints. And I've done this with athletes who are really, really fast. I've said to them, you can't solve this problem with speed. I'm constraining your speed. So now you've got to solve this problem differently. So now they actually have to try and explore those things. So instead of them solving everything with speed, they now have to solve it with their mind. They have to solve it with the way that they control the body, the way they understand psychological aspect, which means that they take away someone's time, do they create space? So now they've got to solve things differently. And this is what coaching is about, understanding the identity of the athlete and how they solve their problems. And if you want them to evolve and be better, you have to take away the way that they solve problems. So they have to solve problems differently. And now they're expanding their toolbox of understanding. They're now getting better at things, and you're now introducing new things, as opposed to just running the standard same game and watching that same child mohawk around the ice because mohawks was the thing he got when he was 6 and he's really good at them. And now he solves everything with a mohawk. Or the wrist shot, slap shot, snap shot concept. I only solve everything with a wrist shot. Great. I'm constraining the wrist shot. You have to think of another way of scoring. Okay. Now I have to think about backhand shots. Now I have to think about snapshots. So now all of a sudden, you as a coach are developing different ways of different constraints for every person's affordance. That's what I enjoy about coaching.
Yeah, we all know that player that just goes back to the exact same well and never tries anything else. Just take that one away and like see how they change their mind. Or
Correct.
like I love to do 3-on-3 cross ice, and every team, for example, will have a certain way they can score, and the other team will have a different way they can score. One, they're trying to figure out what's the other team trying to do, and two, they're trying to figure out how do I manufacture whatever it is. Like it's a deke, or it's got to be a rebound, or it's got to be a one timer, it's got to be a pass from behind the net. It's whatever it is, backhand finishes, etc. It's always curious to see how kids manufacture and like open up the possibilities in their minds of what else can we do. The other thing that I really wanted to pull out from your answer there was we talked about it, but I really want to crystallize it and give it a name, which is kind of like understanding your relative role. Like you don't know if you're F1, F2, F3 unless you look around and understand everyone else. So just I'll say understanding your relative role in conjunction with everyone else that is playing the game, which I like to lead that into what I call technical and tactical empathy, where like if you've got a player that struggles to catch hard passes, maybe you take a little weight off it. Like there's a technical thing that you're going to do that shows empathy that's going to help the next person make the best play or put them in a good space where you pass to open ice where it leads them where they need to be going. Put it on their forehand, not in their feet. Those things are like tactical. Like you have F2 driving hard to the net. Maybe he doesn't get a puck, but now you're taking the defense with you. That makes the game easier and opens the game up for your teammates. So understanding those relative roles and understanding your teammates' affordances or abilities, what can you do to make them look good? Like what can we do to
Yeah,
make our
no,
teammates look good?
absolutely. And you could expand on that, pushing towards the 4 role concept, where offense with the puck and then offense supporting the puck, and then you've got defense on the puck and then defense away from the puck. So they're the 4 roles. All of a sudden, we're starting to, and that was one of the things that we push towards is understanding whether you're what are you? What's your identity when you're actually on the ice? Am I supporting the role? Am I defending? And do we have the puck? Don't we have the puck? If I'm supporting you, what am I talking about? Is it a short form support or am I long form support? Whereabouts are we on the ice? These are questions that you have to ask so they can start identifying those. And then how would you solve that? If the puck is in the corner, I want you to solve that. I generally have I have a time constraint that I love to use. It's part of my psychological understanding. And generally, if I don't set a time constraint on something, they'd solve the problem differently. And really, what we're after is spin and solving the problem in the shortest amount of time, the most efficient way. On entry, you have to score within 5 seconds, or you have to give the puck to the other team. So all of a sudden now they have to organise. So how do we now solve this problem? Now I have to put someone in front of net. So if the puck enters the zone, where are we now? And all of a sudden they start to self-organise. Am I going to be support close or am I going to be support far? Am I going to be the second pass? Am I going to be the first pass? Am I supporting behind? Am I forechecking? Am I back checking? These are all these different concepts that they start to have a conversation about purely because you've set a 5-second rule. Now, if I didn't set that 5-second rule, they just go in and move the puck around and maybe cycle half a dozen times and, lose the puck a couple of times. But now they enter the zone, they've got 5 seconds. Solve the problem in 5 seconds. And then all of a sudden they actually start to solve the problem. They start to put, they'll get it wrong the first few times. They have to give the puck away. They get annoyed. They have to give the puck away. They have to go and recover the puck again, take it back in, have another go, get annoyed, give the puck back, leave, get back in again. And then when they decide that they've had enough of giving the puck away after those 5 seconds, they start scoring goals. And that's purely because of the fact that constraint, that 5-second constraint, has now allowed them to physically start to thinking about self-organizing. How do I get the puck to the net? What problem are we trying to solve? How do I get it from here to there? Why am I doing this? Then you start to look at how we then start manipulating the extra players. I feel because we're such a cancel culture now, I've cancelled the word puck control in my trainings. We have no longer a word called puck control. I cancelled it 2026. So now every time you touch the puck, it is puck protection. So every time you touch the puck, you are now protecting the puck from the other team, and that could be moving the puck from one position to another. That could be finding soft ice. That could be body position. So now they start to think about, when they're entering the zone, what does that look like? How do we then start creating gaps of understanding for people to fill? How do we do that in 5 seconds? And all of a sudden they start to self-organize these problems. And that's what you want. And that was without me having to say, hey, you should be standing over there. It's really setting that simple constraint. Now they've got to problem solve it. That's what I love about sort of the non-linear approach. That's what I love about ecological dynamics, that you stumble across all these other solutions from a problem that you were trying to fix something else. And then because of that self-organization, they fix half a dozen other things. Your cycling task is a perfect example of a problem that you were trying to solve, had no relevance, but they just decided that cycling made it easier for them to move the puck around.
My current favorite thing to do is if you take a shot, you leave the game. So one, you're going to pass and control the puck or protect the puck better. And then also your shot selection, you're not taking garbage shots, or you're taking more purposeful shots. To your point about like the 5-second rule, and like what are some examples coaches can get thinking of? I would say those are two great places to start and figure out what else can you do. And now that I've got you riled up, I feel the energy coming through right now, even with the late night. I feel like you're ready to go out after this. I'd love just to hear about like how you've created this little hockey incubator in Perth, Australia, because it's not just ice hockey we're talking about. There's so much more to it that you guys are doing.
Yeah. Look, I think the fact is that we're quite passionate about the sport, and I think also, in relative terms, we have I think we've got 2 Australians who are playing in the NHL. So that's probably not something that we're sort of searching for. I don't want to destroy all those 6 and 7-year-olds out there worried about sort of not making the NHL. But the reality is that we're it's quite an enjoyable sport here, people are enjoying that. So I think from a hockey perspective, that sort of resonates into that space where people find connection and community. That's from that people's perspective. From an education perspective for myself, I enjoy exploring. I like to think of myself as a bit of a scientist, and then coming up with ideas, and then being able to explore those ideas and to see and sometimes they don't work. I mean, the reality is that if you look at, science is one of those things that, 999 things didn't work and that one thing did. You just hope it was the first one and not the 1,000th one, right? But the reality is that that's what we do. And as coaches, that's what we also do. We see problems in the game. We document those problems. We try and solve those problems through other games. You explore that. You develop new ways of looking at it. You educate athletes and coaches around you. It's quite a community-based product. And I feel that's sort of where we're sort of moved to. Does that sort of answer your question, or did I get lost in that?
Well, there's this great passion, but I'm trying to picture, I guess, more so like how do people find the game? Because it's not just one route into finding ice hockey. It's
No,
one
no,
route
no.
to
Good.
finding street hockey or roller hockey or inline hockey. It's just finding the sport in general and all of the great things that can come from that.
Yeah, that's good. So I feel that hockey on ice is the premium version of what everyone wants to aspire to. And there are all these other ways of actually getting to that space. So, you might find that your community friendship group is doing street hockey, or your community friendship group is doing sort of, inline, or you're playing these sports. And then there's this sort of, you resonate, you enjoy the sport, you want to learn a little bit more, you start to understand what that game looks like. And then you realize that ice hockey is the premium version of this, and everyone is sort of directed towards that. So we find a lot of educational avenues coming through that process. 2025, we just our national body, Ice Hockey Australia, has just organised an inline street hockey program that's gone Australia-wide, which is huge. It's a huge pat in the back for them. So they've got an organisation that's running those things. We do a lot of inline programs and street hockey programs, because the way that you develop the sport has to be small and scaled, and then kids who aspire to more can go out to more and play more and then get more and more involved in the ice. Or if they're happy where they are, they get to play in their game as well. So it gives them the ability to be able to play more than one game. It's a multi version of sport where they can sort of move up and down and scale the way they want to. But that's sort of what we found. A lot of our I guess our adult group has come from the street hockey inline process. A lot of our kids programs, they come from general skating and seeing hockey players skating around. And, our rink at Coburn, which is the one I'm based at, is a 2-sheet rink. So they have general session one side and sort of ice sports on the other. And kids can go and skate at a general session and then come next door and watch someone of their age play a game as well. So you can be a 12-year-old next door skating around and come next door and then watch 12-year-olds play ice hockey. So then you can aspire to that, which is, a fantastic way of sort of developing the sport that way. And as I say, that's probably where most of our youth come from, is, those smaller skating academies or from general skating, and they come through our adult programs, come through our street and inline hockey programs. So, there's multiple ways of getting into playing the sport.
I just love that there's so much access to it. It's not like you just have to go through this one way in this program and it's like this beautiful funnel. It's like, oh, you have all of these different options and you go up and down and you can have different friend groups. It just seems like a cool spot to be in and a cool community to be a part of. And I was on Twitter, or X, whatever it's called these days, the other day, and Jamie Rice, one of my favorite coaches out of Babson, was like, I am strongly believing that hockey, that street hockey created better hockey sense. Like his whole thing was like, you're not gliding, you're not moving into bad ice. Like you physically are moving or staying in good ice, and just being more patient on it. So like I think there's also like the piece of, even just from a development standpoint, of playing all these different little pieces where the game's slightly different. Again, to our point of like restricting or creating the affordances. Uh, creates different ways of problem solving or different ways of playing the game that could be more
Yeah.
effective.
Well, you imagine that if you're having to run everywhere, you're probably going to be a bit more efficient. If you can just, say, I'm probably just not going to run around in circles and get really, really tired for no apparent reason. I'm probably going to run to where I can score goals. So all of a sudden, if I'm run into a space and there are 5 other people standing there, I'm probably going to run to a space where there isn't any. And all of a sudden, you're starting to develop this understanding of what space looks like, and understanding of time, because we're efficient. We don't want to do running. If you're probably not going to run up and down, up and down, up and down. You're probably just going to run to the right spot to receive a pass. So that's where those games happen. And then when you start to look at it from a small area game perspective, because you've constrained the size, every decision you're making has very little time left. It's a very short window of opportunity, or the affordance is quite small. So now you have to be more efficient in the way that you're passing, you're moving the puck around. How are you protecting the puck? How long can I hold on to this puck before I have to give it away? And if I have to now hang on to this puck, then I have to either move away from other people, and there isn't much space. So now I've got to actually move away under pressure to better ice, and now I've got to support the puck from a protection perspective, because remember, cancel culture, and we cancelled pucks basically puck control. So these are the things that small area games do. These are the things that sort of those street hockey games do. And plus, how many coaches are out there during the street hockey game? So, I find that sometimes we complicate things as coaches because we have this master plan that we want everyone to aspire to, and that's great. But that master plan is going to be thrown in the bin as soon as you come against a team that understands your master plan. So if you haven't got anyone that's robust and then they're not efficient in the way that they skate. So that means that if I can skate left and skate right, I can skate left and skate right, not just skate around in the same circle all the time. So they've become more efficient in the way that they play the game and the way they see the game. And then they see patterns of recognition. They'll remember when they played this game in the training and, oh, I remember that. Oh, I went over there because that was easier. And they skate over to there. All of a sudden, wow, they've just done something different. And then all of a sudden they're dragging their players with them. And then they say, hey, we tried this in a game and this is what we did. And then all of a sudden they start to expand on the way that they play and it's more organic. And that's what you want them to be, more organic, because then it's unstructured. It still has the global constraints. We still understand that you want to be above the puck if you're defending. You want to have the puck on your stick if you're thinking you're attacking. Those are the things that are still standard habits. We don't change those. But how do we do those things is what we don't have to dictate. Those are things that they can explore and find different ways and fail and succeed and fail and succeed in training so they can learn how to do those things. I have a real concept and it's called sampling. Sampling gives you the ability to be able to try a multitude of things. It's like going to a restaurant and you can try everything on the menu, as opposed to just going there and having the same steak sandwich every day. You can try all the different foods and you sample them. So why can't we do that when we're training? Why can't we sample different ways of solving problems to see whether they work? See if they fit my affordance. See if I can do what's needed to succeed in that outcome. And if not, what do I need to do? Hey, coach, I want to do this, but I don't know how to. Okay, well, how do you solve that problem? Well, it seems like speed. Do you have speed? Oh, probably not. Okay, what do you need to work on then? It's probably speed. Okay, do you want me to assist you in giving you ideas on how to work on speed? Yes, thanks, coach. All of a sudden, I'm now coaching. But I haven't said to them, hey, you guys are too slow. You need to get faster. They've just realized that there are some solutions that they need to solve those problems, and speed could be one of them. They see little Johnny, it solves those problems with speed. So I want to be like little Johnny. I better get faster. My hands aren't strong enough to be able to protect this puck because I watched Timmy over there and he's really good with the puck. What do I need to do, coach? Well, how does Timmy solve this problem? He solves it this way. Okay. Have you spoken to Timmy about this? I'm going to go speak to Timmy now. All of a sudden, there's collaborative understanding. I didn't have to be involved in that. I can allow Timmy to shine for a moment or two to teach how to do these things. And all of a sudden now we're starting to build that development of belief, that psychological safety, that control of understanding that the coach isn't the center of this wheel. I'm just developing an environment for them to explore. Gretzky's the most perfect person. He spent more time without a coach playing the game than he did with a coach. So if the coach was so important, how can somebody like that develop to somewhere where they are without the coach? If we feel that we are the center of this hub, then more players developed without coaches than they did with. And coaching's been around for what? 70 or 100 years. We've been playing sports for what? 15, 20,000 years. That's 15, 20,000 years before coaches came along. We did okay then. So, once we start to have a belief that my job is just to find the problems to solve, create those environments for them to solve them, allow them to solve those problems, create a safe place so they can come and have a conversation to get more ideas or to explore those ideas. Conversation is great. They can come and have a chat to you. I don't really know how I should solve this. Well, what's your thoughts on solving this? Well, I tried this and I tried that. Okay. Why don't we watch the next round and you tell me how they solved the problem? Great. So we sit back and we watch. Okay. How did they solve it? They pushed the puck up the boards. Okay. So is that something you can try? It is. That's a conversation about coaching. I didn't need to pull everyone to the board. I didn't need to draw this. I didn't need to stop the ice for 10 minutes. That's me just having a 30-second chat while they're waiting in the queue. That's the type of coaching we want to see. We want to see the game flow. We want to see lots of people moving, lots of people touching the puck. And the little sneaky bits of coaching that you slide in there, that's what coaching should be about, not standing next to a whiteboard, having everyone watch you while you draw fantastic things on the board. It's not coaching because they're generally timing out after 30 or 40 seconds. We're allowing them to explore those problems safely, allowing them to ask questions about the problems that they're trying to solve. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do as coaches.
Just get rid of your whiteboards. All right, I got it.
I have an ice pen and I draw in the ice, so it looks like the game. And I'll point it in the way of the game and I'll draw the net where the net is. And I'll say, and this is the younger ones, the older ones, we can have conversations. You try not to confuse the world. You try not to have 500 different games to play. You have 10 or 12 games that you play, different versions of lengths and sizes, and then you just manipulate the constraints in those games. 3-on-3 cross ice. How many 3-on-3 cross ice games? I've developed a product called Task Sketch, and where people can upload their own games. And I tell you, I have at least 100 3-on-3 cross ice games, but each one solves a problem via the constraints that we've created. So, do I have to explain how a 3-on-3 works? No, I don't. Once I've explained it once, I probably don't need to explain it again. And then you can just throw constraints in there like it's, like you're seasoning the meat with salt. I'm just adding another constraint in. Okay, so the Ds can't shoot now. Okay, great. So now they have to organize. Who wants to be the D in that 3-on-3? Great. You're not allowed to go past the middle line now. So now we're working on a high guy. All of a sudden, the high guy has to be involved in a pass now. Okay, now we're passing back. That could be anything. How do we get out behind the net? Okay, well, that pass behind the net can't be a stretch pass. You have to do 2 touches before you leave your half. All of a sudden, now I'm working on breakouts. So it's still the same 3-on-3 game. It doesn't change, but the constraints allow you to manipulate the problems that you want to solve, and you take away those things. So that's sort of what you try to do. You don't have to go to the whiteboard because I don't have 37 moving parts. It's not intricate. I don't have to have, it doesn't fall over when the third guy on the second run on the 4th line can't pass very well, and all of a sudden every person that was in that game just fell over and died. So and if you only get 4 goes because there are 20 people standing in a queue and you got that guy every time, you haven't touched a puck in 41 minutes. So a cross ice 3-on-3 means I get to touch the puck hundreds of times. I get to work on my passing. The coach gets to change the constraints to make it more difficult for me to score. So now I've got to solve that differently. Oh, another constraint, coach. Yep, another constraint. Figure it out. How are you going to solve the problem now? So, and you can start off with, a half of a zone, a full zone, then go to a half ice, and then you can use the constraint across full ice. You have the ability to be able to manipulate the same game. We play 5-on-5 full ice. It looks no different than the game. Why would I need to draw that on the board? But I set constraints that you can only enter on the outsides of the dots, and you can only exit through the middle of the dots. Self-organized. So now they're going to have to start seeing what a breakout pass looks like. How are they going to work out what the bumper works? How are they going to work out, what the slash looks like? These are conversations, but I did nothing but just set the game, set a constraint, and now let them figure it out. No intricate 10-way passing, 2-touch passes, back pass through, none of that, because it doesn't replicate in a game. I mean, that does not replicate in a game. Once maybe, in a 60-minute game. But if you set the simple constraints in the simple game, you don't have to overly explain it. They can figure out the problem solve. If they solve it too easily or they solve it differently, you change the constraints. I had in the women's program, I had a young woman, Liv Del Basso. I call her the constraints breaker. She will. I'll set a constraint and she'll find a way around that constraint within seconds. I reckon she was a sort of savant in her former life. So I have Del Basso constraints where she actually has her own constraints based on the game, and everyone else has different constraints than her. Because she'll see ice where there isn't any, and she'll put the puck in places that most won't even understand because she felt that the constraint I set was too arbitrary, so she wants to play a different way. And I love that about her, and that's what she does all the time. And I've created games based around Live Del Basso, and they're the Live Del Basso small area games, and that's the way that she manipulates the players, manipulates the puck, and that's talent. That's what you like to see, you know. So those are the things that we're supposed to do. Look, I love small area games. They don't always have to be in the corner. They can be full ice small area games. You can create constraints based on those. You can change the numbers. You can play 3-on-5. I had a high performance team. We used to practice the 3-on-5 quite a bit. And then what would happen is they would get lots of penalties, because our officials they like having their hand up. So the reality is that sometimes in a game, and pretty much every game, they get to play 3-on-5. And that reality meant that they'd already practiced the 3-on-5. They'd already spent time developing 3-on-5 techniques. And they worked out time was the best thing for a 3-on-5. You pressure the puck carrier. So if you don't have it, you pressure them into making poor decisions. And then you add speed. So you get out of there as quickly as possible under puck protection, and you head 200 feet all the way down the other end and furthest away from your net as you possibly can, and you keep shooting until the puck goes in. The simple stuff, right? The game isn't difficult. We try and make it difficult to make ourselves look, I guess, more in tune. This is a fantastic drill. Look, there's 9 moving parts to this. And the reality is that the game creates itself. The puck has a mind of its own, or you control it. That's the two. As soon as the other team gets it, you've now got to make decisions based on what they're doing. You can't control what they're doing. You can only manipulate the ice, manipulate the psychological side of the game, and manipulate space. When they make decisions, that's their decisions. You have to now perceive and act on those decisions that they make.
All right. We've opened a Pandora's box of so many things for people to go explore. I think if we put one more in their brain, they might explode. But Barry, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on, taking the time late Friday night. Keep you doing a lot better things than this. So I really appreciate you.
I'm loving this. I love talking hockey.
This is fantastic. No, thanks for giving your time and expertise. And if anyone needs to find you, where can they get more from Coach Barry?
Google NRG Hockey. Perth, Western Australia was a really good find, or LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. And if you're on the coach's site, come and find me. Happy for a chat. So if you guys have got questions, or you want me to point you in a direction so you can solve some more problems, just catch up.
Love it. Thanks again, Barry. Take care.
Thanks, Greg.
That concludes this week's episode. Thanks for joining us here at Hockey IQ. If you haven't already, take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and drop a review. If you want to be a great teammate, even recommend us to a friend. You can follow us at Hockey's Arsenal on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the website, hockeysarsenal.com, where you can subscribe to the weekly newsletter. You won't regret it. Catch your buttes here next week for a brand new episode.